To understand what I'm about to tell you, you need to do something first. You need to believe in the impossible. Can you do that?
What do you desire that you can't have?
Now you should at least give a brother a moment to say something heroically clever.
You have failed this city.
So I have this thing with rolls?
Just the end of the world.
There's about a dozen ways that I could stop you right now. But I don't think I have to.
You're the boy from the circus.
I started up a security firm.
Finally, a superhero team I can actually get behind.
In the future, my friends may not be heroes, but if we succeed, they will be remembered as legends.
Welcome to the DC TV Report for the week ending Saturday, April 11th. I'm Sara and Bill, academic by day, writer by night.
And I'm Bill Sweeney, an aspiring fan of things.
We are here to bring you recaps, news, and commentary for all live-action television shows based on DC Comics. You may notice a different voice, a couple of different things, and we are only 10 seconds in. Hey, friends, Ed's a little under the weather this week. Nothing serious. It's just a little bit of a voice throat thing. He didn't want to torture your ears, so nothing scary. He'll be back next week, but in the interim, we have Bill Sweeney, the myth, the man, the legendary curmudgeon.
I mean, he didn't want to hurt your ears, but for some reason he put me to fill in. So I don't know if that's any better or worse. That was a very last-minute
thing. I mean.
Well, what's funny is that Ed had was pulling me in for this episode for what we'll get to down a little bit, the Return of the Swamp Thing, recap and review hoedown. The hoedown in the swamp that we're going to have. And then just a little while ago, he had a little cough that wouldn't leave him alone, little throat thing for the last couple of days. And he was like, guys, I don't think I'm going to do it. No, we were like, oh, no. You're leaving us in charge?
So everything is out the window, and I'm going to talk to you today about Amway products. No.
Look, I mean, you might as well take the opportunity now. He's not around.
Ed's not me, so. But yeah, so as Bill said, we do not have any new episodes this week. We do have a retro pick movie. So we are going to do a little bit of news rundown. We're going to talk to you about the movie, and a reminder that next week, because we have no new episodes again next week, we will be watching the 2005 unaired Aquaman pilot, which is available on DC Universe.
Woo-hoo.
Bill, you have seen?
No, I only know legend of the Aquaman pilot that was so bad.
I've heard stories, rumors, songs.
It's a legend of
the night.
It's a pirate legend.
So that is what we are going to be doing for next week. If you would like to watch along with us and join the conversation when Ed will be back, and we'll talk about Aquaman.
Yeah.
I assume there's just constant trouble at the docks, just constant.
Well, he probably should stay close to the water. Is just what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he's going to be dipping in and out, half in the land, half on the land, half in the water, polluters, stuff like that. I can guarantee you pollution is somehow a plot point in that pilot. It's just a guess. You're so excited.
So excited. That is next week. This week, as Bill has already said, we have Return of Swamp Thing from 1989 for you fine people. I don't know what you did to deserve this, but it's happening to you, so buckle up.
Yeah. Hey, it's available on Amazon Prime. If you haven't watched it yet, pause this, go watch it, come back.
Yeah,
I mean, if you survive the experience.
Which, honestly, I am not sure, because I barely did. But we're not there yet.
No.
First, do we banter? Do you want to banter? Have we bantered enough? Is this...
It's Corona season, so we can touch on that real quick. I'm in New York. I'm safe. I'm fine. Nobody in my family has caught anything. They are okay. How is your family?
We're all good. We're
all right. We're done. We're all caught up.
Downstate. We're good. So how about some news?
Yes.
All right. Let's start off with Supergirl. So the return of season 5 has been delayed a week. It will now be coming back on May 3rd. However, its sister show Batwoman still is coming back on the date that was previously announced, which is April 26th. So Batwoman remains April 26th. Supergirl is moving to May 3rd for its triumphant return post-corona hiatus. It doesn't really give any reasons why, although I will say... sketchy. I can report on sketchy things because Ed isn't here to glower at me. Not that he glowers. He's a very kind, upbeat. Oh my God, it's already off the rails. Sketchy reporting from cheatsheet.com has an interview with Nicole Maines, who plays Dreamer, who said they're going to actually try to cobble together stuff they've already shot to make the finale of Supergirl for season 5. So I'm wondering if maybe they just need a little bit more time to I don't know, rewrite CGI cobble, like cobblers making shoes, beautifully crafted shoes.
It takes time.
Yeah, right? It takes, ask Daniel Day-Lewis. He became a cobbler. Why am I talking about cobbling? Pull the plug. Anyway, that is not the stated reason for the move. I just was super curious when I saw that kind of sketch news report. Maybe a little bit more time will let them just go bam, bam, bam through the end of the season. So we shall see.
It sounds right.
We shall. Sounds good. Also, in your super random Supergirl news, I have no idea why this surfaced right now, but an article on ScreenRant.com says that Melissa Benoist actually originally auditioned for the role of Thea Queen on Arrow. Obviously, it went to Willa Holland, who had that kind of duality of light and dark a little bit better, because Benoist kind of is all light. But I thought that was interesting. We could have had Melissa as Thea.
And let's all imagine a world where the lady who played Thea, then maybe could have auditioned for Supergirl and ended up as Supergirl. What if there's a parallel universe, since we're talking DC, where that's the series of events?
Over on Earth 16, Supergirl carries a switchblade. That's just how she rolls.
That's just how she rolls. She's badass.
She does not have time for your garbage.
There you go.
So yeah, that is the Supergirl news.
Okay.
Moving on to
Superman
and Lois.
Superman and Lois music.
I don't know. We have some casting news, which is coming thick and fast for that show. Lana Lang and her husband, Kyle Cushing, have been cast. They will be played by Emmanuel Creaky. God damn it. Emmanuel Creaky, whose name I've never been able to pronounce, but you may know as E's girlfriend from Entourage, and I'm very sorry for bringing up Entourage on this Safe Space program.
Hey, there was a time where for like 15 minutes that show made sense. And
Baby Bro, the movie's on. Oh, Baby Bro, movie's off.
Bro, that show was zeitgeist for 15 minutes of like its third episode, and then that was it.
The saddest weekend of my life was binging, I think, that entire show over a long holiday weekend with Jason. We just sat down as one type of people, and 40 hours later emerged as just a whole different type of people.
That's what happens.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's great song. Okay, anyway. So E's girlfriend from Entourage is playing Lana Lang, who is a Smallville loan officer at a bank. And Eric Valdez, as her husband Kyle Cushing, is the fire chief, and he doesn't much cotton to people from the big city. So I don't know.
People from the city are pyromaniacs, and he's a fire chief, so he doesn't want them in his town.
They're all all of them.
That's what whether he's right or wrong, that's what he believes.
I am assuming this is setting them up for a conflict with Lois, like Lois's ultimate I don't know. We shall see. I just know that the words Smallville loan officer is the most depressing thing I've ever said. So yeah, Ed does a better job of pretending it's funny the second time. I just gotta say. All right, moving on to Stargirl.
Stargirl music.
But there's a new trailer. So if you're interested in seeing that, it has a little bit of staff action. What's the staff called? I'm sorry about the hand gestures I'm doing right now. You know, the staff.
Well, luckily I was looking away for a split second there. Yeah, the master staff. The master staff.
The master staff. Well, so it has a lot of Luke Wilson action. There's some staff action.
Not infection. Not staff infection.
No.
Okay.
Thankfully. I don't know how clean that set is. Maybe there is. There also, if you are curious, CBR.com has a style sheet for the Wildcat costume. So if you are desperate to get a close-up sketch of the Wildcat costume, you can get a clear look at what that's going to be, which may be exciting for you if you're a big Wildcat fan or a big Stargirl fan or a big costume fan or a big sketch fan. I don't know.
Well, is it just a sketch? It's a black and white drawing?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, well, that can be interesting. You can imagine the color scheme.
You can use your imagination. You've been in lockdown for a while. You probably are used to day hallucinations by now.
You know what you could do? You could print it out and color it.
Color it. You can have, we could have a contest in our households for who can do the best. Put your pets on it, whatever.
Post the winner on the fridge, right up on the fridge.
Right there. Maybe put it in the window so your mail carrier.
Share it with the town.
The town deserves that.
They do.
So that's the Stargirl news. Last bit of news we have this week. This is something we have not talked about, I think, since August of 2019. Got an update on Sweet Tooth.
Sweet Tooth.
Music.
This is the comic with the kid with the antlers?
Okay.
Question mark?
Sounds right.
We initially reported that it was coming to Hulu. I thought that we had some story about maybe it was going to start filming at some point in mid-2019. Have heard nothing until now, and apparently Sweet Tooth is moving to Netflix, which feels like a step up, right?
Yeah, I mean,
no shade on Hulu, but
I feel like at least there's less restrictions, maybe.
Sweet, but what is more interesting to me, and I think to DC fans, Robert Downey Jr. is a producer, and it's going to be showrunners are Beth Schwartz from that final season of Arrow, and Jim Mickle from Hap and Leonard, which I have not seen, but I have heard good things. You've got a DC alum in Beth Schwartz who's going to be showrunning. You've got somebody who Jim Mickle from a crime show. Hap and Leonard is a cop show?
No. I watched the first couple episodes of that. That was kind of like, where you got like Psych. It's kind of like one of these kind of like PI shows where no one's really a PI. It's like James Garner would have been in this years ago. It's just kind of like, I'm just a local who gets, his hands in the middle of things. But they were both kind of like a couple of goofy-ish kind of characters, so there was some interesting semi-drama with some comedy overtones. It was pretty good. I mean, I liked it. I liked what I saw. So if that somehow keys into the southern touches that this kind of thing will need, I see why that might be a matchup.
So my saying cop crime ? I feel like I was at least in the neighborhood.
Yeah, no,
at least it wasn't a show set at the Bolshoi Valet or something. I mean,
you were right. You had the three things important, especially the question.
Wow, did you hear me make you tell me that I was right? Did you just?
Well, I don't think you were baiting me for it, really. I mean, if we're gonna be fair, but I felt like no. You were right.
Anyway, so we have not talked about Sweet Tooth in 100,000 years. I thought it was quite noteworthy that it's got some big names attached to it, maybe coming to Netflix. So stay tuned as we hear more about that. And that is it for the news this week.
All right. That's it for the news.
Yeah. So I guess you want to...
I've been watching Harley Quinn, the cartoon, and my new obsession is that... although I don't do it that much, but every time I watch the show, I fall in love with some other small aspect. And right now, it's how whenever Clayface is like pretending to be somebody else, and he'll do like the voice and all, but every now and then he'll hit an R word, and like he'll do this weird, like he starts to slip out of the voice. I don't know. You have to watch it to understand what I'm talking about.
And you should. All you fine mammals out there should be watching.
Oh, it's
Harley
so
Quinn.
good. It's a fave. So where are we now? What do we do? What's next?
Can we call Ed? No, I'm kidding. It's time for the movie. Retro pick. Return of Swamp Thing, 1989.
1989. You want to do the read? You want me to do the read?
You do it.
All right.
Jump in there.
The Return of Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing tried to stop Anton Arcane from completing his horrific experiments. Arcane's stepdaughter, Abigail, Arcane's granddaughter Abigail visited the compound. What? No, stop.
Stepdaughter, not granddaughter.
Shit. All right. Can we? Maybe Ed will edit that out. Maybe he won't.
Or maybe he'll leave it in because he's a vindictive god.
That's right. I'm gonna go from the top though.
Okay.
Arcane's stepdaughter Abigail visited the compound looking for answers about her mother's death. Two bratty kids tried to sneak a picture of Swamp Thing. Last minute reveal. Omar and Daryl blamed each other for not putting film in the camera. That breakdown that Ed wrote.
Ed outdid himself on that breakdown.
That's pretty good, but the funny thing is how, like, in this one particularly, he minimalized, like, any redeeming story point. Like, by the last thing in this is just about the kids.
You said something really interesting there that I would like to unpack, and that is the concept that there was anything redeeming about this movie. Okay, listen up. Which of you out there recommended this movie? Who was it? I want names. Because this may be one of the worst movies I have ever watched. From the writing to the acting to the special effects. Now the special effects I don't like. 1989, like
you can't hold too much. Yeah,
but I no longer have the capacity to trust.
Oh,
I'm not sure I can still feel joy.
Oh,
it was You're a plant, aren't you? It was so bad. Counterpoint. What were your thoughts?
Oh, me. Well, what's funny is that since you say it like that, I can only imagine that you haven't seen enough crappy movies.
That is possible.
Because I feel like, for me going into this, it was not as crappy as I remember it being. So I had seen this when I was young and then when it first come out, and in my memory, and then also talking to Ed during the week after he had watched it, and he was having a very visceral reaction as well, that I was prepared for this to be so much worse than what it is, though. I'm not saying it's high art, but it is I will give this movie one real thing, that, like, it knows what it is, and it's going for that, which is like campy but not too campy, schlocky but not too schlocky, to a certain degree. Up until you see Swamp Thing in the opening minutes, it's okay. Like, it doesn't reveal any campiness until Swamp Thing comes into frame and it's like, I'm Swamp Thing, basically. It does like a thumbs up and then a logo.
Basically comes out reciting Shakespeare. Friends, foes, gentlemen, ladies.
Lend me your
yes.
But yeah, that's like my, like I was taking notes, and I was like just kind of interested in the fact of, like, okay, it opens up with these guys who are like in the swamp, some weekend warrior types, hunting or some shit, and you know, they're getting picked off, and so it's not campy, but it just feels very low budget horror. And then Swamp Thing comes out of nowhere, beats up the monster, and then, you know, basically saves the one guy. But when, which I want to unpack a little bit too, but when he saves that one guy and just how he comes into frame and he smiles, his kind of goofy grin that he's got, I don't think he does the thumbs up there, but like he is like a thumbs up guy.
He is a thumbs up guy.
But the Swamp Thing logo smashes on the screen, Return of the Swamp Thing, and then Born on the Bayou starts to play. So like these three things just kind of at the same time go, oh no, there is going to be goofiness here too, folks. Strap in. Like, but I will say that the one thing I wanted to point out is that in that opening sequence, one of the warrior, the Rambo dudes, one of these guys, he it's always somebody does something they shouldn't have done, you know, in a horror movie. So it's when the one guy starts to take a leak, because otherwise these guys haven't done anything. I'm like, why are they going to get attacked right now? I remember that they get attacked. What do they do to set this creature off in a way? And it's because one guy pisses in the swamp. And you know what? That bog is rank enough. It doesn't need you making it worse, you know? So,
you know, I feel like, as we discussed with the Aquaman pilot, just respect your, don't pollute.
Yeah,
don't pollute.
Don't pollute. I will say too that when the one guy in the beginning there loses his glasses, I did think he was doomed.
Well, you know what it reminded me of, I was going to say the Mummy, because there's the scene when the mummy takes the eyes from the guy with the glasses and then is a short-sighted mummy all the way through the movie.
Okay.
And maybe it's because I had the Mummy in the back of my head. That was why I was just like, well, this is no Mummy.
Sir, I know the Mummy.
The Mummy.
I know the Mummy, sir, and you, sir, are no Mummy.
But you make a really good point about what the movie is not trying to be. It's not trying to be Swamp Thing from DC Universe. It's not trying to be anything. It's trying to be exactly what it was. So I really was perhaps a little harsh. It was quite enjoyable for what it was. It just was some of the fighting I've seen more competently done camp. I'll say that.
Oh yeah. Because also too, not to knock Heather Locklear, but let's just jump into her a little bit and her character. But they've written dialogue for her that I think is like she's probably supposed to be like the funniest person in the movie, if you think about it. Like these things that are coming out of her mouth are supposed to be kind of like quirky, funny, witty things, and they don't land.
No, that opening monologue with the plants it was like watching an audition tape of somebody who's straight out of the a mediocre theater department who's like, I'm gonna be a star. Here's my plant monologue. Everyone.
Oh my God.
Buckle up, world, I'm here.
Back up, hold on to your seats for an exposition dump as I explain everything about my life and my weird.
It's my stepdad.
My eccentricities, all in 3 minutes tops. Like she's a whirlwind, and I forget the name. Eunice, her the only other person in the scene. A black lady
the
who's
most likable person in this movie.
Yeah, would you say the most likable? She's eating from just an open can of Campbell's soup.
My point stands. The most character in the movie. Who among us in the last couple weeks hasn't eaten from an open can of Campbell's soup?
Maybe she did pick up some things from quarantine. She's very quiet. She's like, I'm just reserved. I have nothing left. I'm going to eat from this can of soup without even hitting it.
To leave the apartment and go to the swamp? I mean, it is on her. I am staying here.
See you later, plant lady. But really setting up the whole logic of her.
Plot to come.
Yes. We're telegraphing a little bit here. She loves plants. Oh my God. Talks to them all. Gives them names. Labels the names on these things. She is destined to fall in love with a man plant.
That's not the F word I thought you were going to use. She loves plants.
She loves the foliage. She's got a real soft spot for foliage.
I will say, plus 10 for the TJ Hooker joke. That was some good stuff. I bet that killed in 1989.
I felt like that was one of the more forced lines. But
well, I think in 2020, it's like, oh, yeah, I see what you did there.
Yeah,
I imagine in 89, people were like, whoa.
Yeah, like, oh, do we have to? But, like, no, I get it. It was a cute swing. And the line is delivered well. It's not, like, clunky in any real way.
It was perhaps her least clunky delivery, yes.
Yes.
Saying something.
Going over my notes real quick. I will give the movie, before we get too far past it, I will give it points for the opening credit sequence, which was just kind of Born on the Bayou from Creedence Clearwater Revival, set to just images from the comics back in the day. Lots of great Bernie Wrightson artwork. There might even be some Kelly Jones artwork, but just real great kind of classic Gothic-ish Swamp Thing imagery. Just really great that they did that like that, and the homage of it all. I did get nervous when the movie opens up and it's a image of the swamp, and then like this crappy semi-comic book font pops up and says, "Once upon a time in the swamp." Why did we need to know? Was that necessary? Once upon a time in the swamp? I feel like it's like we would have figured it out.
Maybe that was their way of saying, comic books ahoy.
Some suspension of disbelief ahead. Strap in, kids. Go ahead.
So, not once but twice in my notes, I have, well, that escalated to rape threats quickly. So that's exciting.
Wait. Which one? Which instance?
There's the swamp rats. There's the two fellas in the swamp who, like, each grab a Heather Locklear arm and start tugging. There's that.
Yeah.
And then later, the inexplicably sexy bodyguard mercenary guy.
Oh, yeah.
Later on, like, that was twice. I was like, dang, we really jumped to it. All right.
Well, it's the 80s. We got time. We have to, we have to subjugate.
We need our threats to be fast, and we need to let women know where they stand.
Yeah.
Done.
I will say that despite that, it did seem to me that there were 3 fairly strong and independent women in this that, even though there were a couple of scenes where they told the doctor to leave the room, Arcane was like, didn't you want to go take a bath or something? Please get away. And she just leaves. But, there was, the badass security chick, the lady doctor, who was pretty pivotal and takes a character turn later on. And then Heather Locklear herself. I felt like there was some good... I'm not saying it's, write a book about feminism and the rise of swamp culture, but...
do you want to challenge me? I could turn that into an article.
Well,
you want to?
If anyone could, it would be you.
Thank you. Let me talk really quickly about the lady doctor. First of all, most scientists do wear enormous statement earrings in the lab. Like, that is part of the dress code. But obviously, a familiar face to DC movie fans of the 70s, Sarah Douglas Ursa from Superman and Superman 2. But her character's name is Dr. Lana Zurell. Zurrell. That has to be on purpose, right? Zurell.
It just feels.
Zurell.
Yeah. It feels like
and
something.
Lana.
There.
That's. I just feel like they were nodding to Superman.
Easily. I mean, and if it was, I don't know if the character is a character from the comics, but it feels like a comic booky name.
I didn't even think about that.
Even if it wasn't like homage, it's a very comic booky name, especially from like back in that era, 70s and 80s type stuff. But yeah, as a character in this, I thought it was interesting for her to kind of like have a change of heart in the third act
I was just excited to see her in a non-Kryptonian role.
Right, sure.
And I haven't seen her. I've seen her in that and in Supergirl last 2 seasons ago.
Okay.
She was one of the Kryptonian witches, and not anything in between. So it's nice to see Sarah Douglas.
I will say, let's go through the cast a little bit, just over quick, because I know that's a thing we usually do. And when I say we, I mean you and Ed.
Well, you live it vicariously when you listen. I know.
Absolutely. Louis Jourdan as Dr. Anton Arcane, also known as a Bond villain in Octopussy, also known as Arcane from the other Swamp Thing movie. The first one, which if you want to hear me and Ed go into, there's an episode of Wicked Theory podcast where me and Ed just pretty much do a movie review on that and our reactions. But you do have Heather Locklear as Abby Arcane, Sarah Douglas, who we mentioned. Dick Durock also returns as Swamp Thing from the previous movie. Joey Segal, no relation to Steven Seagal, as far as I know, as Gunn, who is the top security guy, henchman dude. Very randy.
Excuse me, inexplicably sexy top henchman dude. You forgot my qualifier.
Inexplicably sexy. What is it? The chest hair? Is it the open? Is it the open jumpsuit to his navel?
Any henchman willing to expose that much chest when I feel like you want to keep it buttoned up if you're going to be called into action.
It wasn't you sure it wasn't the battle axe earring?
It was all of it. It was all a glorious combination.
Wait, did you feel any sexy vibes when he was finally trying to make a move on Heather Locklear and was basically just shoving her back?
No.
Yeah, you want it?
That was awful, but the comparing of scars, kind of hot. I was into it with the other henchwoman.
I have a note. All those scars, no matter how old they were saying that they were, still look infected.
Like You might want to see somebody about that. I feel like shrapnel got stuck in the wound and it healed over it, so you might want to.
They are comparing scars, and they're like, I got this one in 82. I got this one in 75. I got this one in 6th grade. And it's a funny kind of bit going back and forth, but each one of them is like a bright red scar that looks like it just, it still looks kind of fresh. Like, I don't think
looks like it's probably a little tender to the touch.
Yeah. I'm waiting for them to get like increasingly like more worse, but they really don't. And then the bit finishes with a Motley Crue joke. That Miss Poinsettia has like above her breast, really. It's like on her chest more so, which is like another in joke to Heather Locklear, who at the time was dating Tommy Lee from Motley Crue. That's a little bit of trivia.
That's actually a useful explanation for me. Thank you. I did not put that together.
Yeah. Well, that's in the IMDb somewhere in the trivia stuff. Also on Amazon. They didn't have a lot of like little trivia bits for this, oddly enough.
How weird.
Here's trivia. It got made. But so otherwise in the cast, you have some familiar-ish faces from the 80s. Also like Ace Mask. And then we mentioned Miss Poinsettia, who's played by Monique Gabrielle. And then a couple of actors who really didn't go on to do too much more. Ron Rialco Lee, who plays Omar, and Daniel Emery Taylor, who plays Daryl. And that's Omi and Daryl, the two young kids that you either love these two kids or you fucking hate them. Because they are high-pitched kid actors who, you know, hey, look, Omar is got some line reads that are okay, but Daryl's got something weird going on, man, where it's just kind of high and flat, and I wish I could do like a little kid voice, but it's just not cool, man.
Astute listeners of this podcast know how I feel about Muppets.
Muppets.
I am anti. These were not Muppets. These were semi-feral children running about the swamp with fancy camera equipment.
Well, I would like to read you something from the IMDb comments section, which why I've chosen it will become revealed. Just give it a moment, all right? Because there seems to be in this comment section some debate on whether or not this movie is any good, and if the camp was intentional or just like a byproduct of like shitty quality kind of a thing.
Sure.
You know, so this top-rated comment that's on here, the top most rated one, the title of it is, "I assure you, it was intended as camp." I assure you it was intended as camp. In regard to some of the other reviews on this film posted here on IMDb, I would like to say, lighten up. Does this film capture the quaint, Craven-esque sci-fi ambiance of the first movie? Of course not. Nor does it capture the dreary, macabre vision of the Alan Moore comic books. What we have here is a perfect, lovely, late 80s fantasy comedy about a 7-foot plant man. If you look at it objectively, perhaps your vision would not be so skewed. Now, you may think that I, Daniel Emery Taylor, featured in the film as Daryl, might be slightly biased. I assure you it's a possibility. However, you must know that the movie was filmed in fun and meant in fun. From every one-line groaner to every silly sexual innuendo, it was all planned and perpetrated. To see how serious we were, take a look at the video DVD cover art. To give a summary of the movie, he goes through a little bit of thing here, but he gets to end some great frightening sequences, comes through a faucet, he drives a Jeep, he takes pictures with these two adorable kids, and in parentheses, and they're really terrific actors too, honestly. And then stuff blows up. If you're a fan of B-movies, as I am, you're likely to enjoy this. There are plenty of laughs, both intentional and unintentional. The acting is what you would expect, and the effects are quite good for its day. This is not a movie you have to ponder or concentrate on. Its subtle social messages and troubled postmodern imagery will not haunt you for days. It's simple fun. So when I found that, I had to share.
I feel like we missed an opportunity. I feel like that dude would have been on this podcast if we had asked him.
Oh, I think so too.
Honestly.
Easily. I feel like we could have put the call out. Well, what's funny is that I went through the IMDb and I saw that he doesn't have an updated image. And also doesn't have a lot of follow-up credits, to be honest with you. So I was didn't suspect for a second that he might chime in on the IMDb messages for this movie.
I think it's worth pointing out the director of this film, Jim Wynorski, has many, many credits to his name. My favorite of which are the Bear Wench Project and the Bear Wench Project 2 Scared Topless. I just needed to...
Sarah, listen, Hollywood's a tough place. It's hard to stay on top. You make a movie like The Return of the Swamp Thing, it goes gangbusters, it makes all kinds of money. I mean, we can get into the money in a moment, but, it's hard to ride the wave of success sometimes. Sometimes it crushes you.
It's true. It's really true. And so you end up doing the Da Vinci co-ed.
Oh.
The Devil Wears Nada. These are amazing. We may be drifting from this movie.
I think this is where we're finding the fun.
Cleavage Field.
All right, so to make it serious, the budget was $4 million. You want to take a swing at how much you think it made worldwide?
I wrap my mind around $4 million. I can't decide if that's either way too much or way too little. I don't know, honestly.
Well, it's $1 million for Jordan to get him to come back and play the same. You want me to play the same gentleman again? I do not think I can do this.
$1 million. I will be there on Monday.
And not for nothing, probably shooting in the swamp, I would think, racks up costs pretty quick. But there's not a lot of, crazy shit on the swamp, really.
Yeah, I mean,
but
special effects were done with markers. Did it make its money back?
No.
Okay.
A resounding no. I will tell you that it made $192,816. Didn't even break $1 million in worldwide gross.
Okay. I thought people in the 80s were like not that picky.
No, but we knew what we saw when we saw it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Heather Locklear was in a satin dress and no brassiere. Like, I genuinely don't understand what's going on in 89.
Oh, I'll tell you what's going on. They probably didn't maximize the sex appeal that she had. They put her in her Sunday Easter best, some pastels, and a big flat-brimmed hat that had some very hot glued flowers on it.
Yeah, that was...
And I will say,
a really good Easter look for the Easter weekend that we're releasing on. So,
I will say there's one aspect of this, like they didn't sexualize her physically in a way that you would expect from the 80s. She's wearing
much grosser. Yeah.
It could have been much grosser. She is wearing in that scene where she arrives at the house, and I only mention it because I was taken aback by how we weren't getting the camera fixated on her overall outfit. She's wearing thigh-high cut stockings and like a mini skirt. It's a very interesting look. I would say as a gentleman, it's a very appealing look. And I was kind of like, when the bottom of the frame would catch it, I was kind of like, oh, well, kudos to the gentleman directing that he didn't say, let's ogle her. But you would figure that it's a very specific outfit to pick. We don't get a full body shot at all of her, really.
Yeah, it feels like the kind of movie where the camera would do kind of like an auga, right? Like,
it feels like that kind of movie, but at the same time, it also feels like the movie like, we ain't got time for tits and ass here. We've got monsters and creatures to get to. Like, these nerds were in it. They were not worried about babes.
By the way, I'm a comm theory scholar, and I am aware that Laura Mulvey pioneered the idea of the male gaze in the cinematic lens. And so when I say auga, understand that that's informed by doctoral studies. I need to point that out.
That's a very professional commentary, Sarah. You should not be concerned or worried about people misreading that.
I appreciate that.
I thought it was more of a Warner Brothers cartoons thing. Bugs Bunny, oh God.
I mean, that too. Have we put off talking about Heather Locklear boning a plant long enough? Is it time?
I mean, we are getting to sexy time. I mean, I feel like we were kind of progressing there.
That also happened real fast. She just really rolled with that. She was like, well, I guess I'm having sex with plants now.
Yeah, I mean, but that's... I mean, dirty mind me, I think she's thought about this before, kind of a thing. Like, well, it just seemed, like you said, it was a little too easy. She's a little too convinced. I mean, she sees him, and while everybody else is freaked out upon sight of him...
And she's like, look at those glutes.
Sarah, she's got the same reaction you do to a salmon ladder. You know, to someone on a salmon ladder. It's like, oh, what is this? Tell me more. Can I stay? Can I watch? I'll just stay. I'll just be over here.
I'm gonna get a chair. I'm gonna sit in the shade. Just do what you do, you boo. I'm gonna be right here.
I'm gonna be right here. I'm just gonna keep an eye on you in case anything happens. All right.
I'm here for mouth to mouth if you need it.
I will say that compared to the previous Swamp Thing, in the movie before this, it's a markedly huge improvement on that costume.
Uh-huh.
Like they might have spent $3.5 million on that costume, and that's where the money went. Because it's pretty good. It's pretty good for the time. It's got a lot going on visually, whereas the last suit was very flat, rubber, and just kind of like it looked like a scuba suit. Someone probably like hot glued like 3 things to. This looks like some people spent some fucking time on it.
Well, and I appreciate that it left room. I mean, it's very swampy, but it did leave room for eye acting.
Yes.
Like, you know, I kind of enjoy. I will say I was a big fan of the DC Universe Swamp Thing. Everybody knows that. But it was dark, and it was kind of hard to see details sometimes because it was a dark show. This was not light-wise dark. You could see everything, and so we got those expressive human eyes. I mean, Heather Locklear, what choice did Abby Arcane have?
I mean, I was waiting for her to put the back of her hand to her forehead and just swoon, and just say, "Oh, the heat, the vapors, the swamp gases got me." I mean, when he farts, it must stink something awful. But that's in the sequel where they have a home life and they've gotten tired of each other.
Yeah, the honeymoon is over at that point.
I did feel like, I mean, it took a really quick, instant, like, she's smitten, and he's the responsible one, and he's like, I don't think this will work. I don't think. And she's like, why not?
You got tentacles, don't you?
You got some kind of vines or stumps or something you can work with here.
I was just pleased that I have learned enough about Swamp Thing over the past year for me to say, get out your pod. And sure enough, here comes the little seed pod.
Here comes the pod that I forgot about, right? That in my head for a minute, I was like, oh my God, is this going to be like Ghost, where like she's actually making out with him, but thinks that she's making out with a normal person? Because as we all remember in the movie Ghost,
it was actually Demi Moore kissing Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes, like, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Which would have made it a very different movie. But I kind of thought... I kind of forgot for that split second that this was like in her head. This was a shared LSD like experience type thing where like, you know, she comes out of it and she's like, well, that was pretty great. And it's like, I don't know if that's very satisfying, but if you say so, physically, I don't know if you really got your rocks off. But for a guy who's like, look, this isn't going to work, he's like, well, since you won't go away.
I mean, I guess
I'll find a way to double down on this. I'll just, complete this brainwashing of you and put some drugs in you.
Seems healthy.
Yeah.
Totally healthy. Nothing problematic.
And I figure they can have some swamp babies at some point in the follow-up to this. He could make them. But yeah, I mean, there's that's the one thing you kind of don't expect out of this movie is that it's really a love story,
It's a beautiful, beautiful love story.
It's just, it's enough to melt the heart,
Or at least make it kind of mossy.
Yes, there's some kind of film, definitely some kind of something growing on it.
Let's see, I thought the talking parrot was perhaps the best actor in this film.
I mean, hey, it's a trope.
The most believable.
Yeah, well, what I loved was just when Arcane would just have those brief interactions with it, and his response would be like, "You are so right, Bird. Yes." He would kind of like look down and off to the side, and he would get it, All right. I will also say that I was very nervous about the boiling bowl of Kool-Aid that was in the laboratory. I don't know if you remember this. There's this giant red bowl of Kool-Aid that was just kind of rolling and bubbling, and I don't know why anybody wants hot Kool-Aid.
Look,
weird set dressing. Just a note.
I can't believe you would judge the traditions of the swamp like that.
Swamp science.
Swamp science.
I was very proud that there was an avocado California joke at one point.
Yes.
I thought it was very ahead of its time, or just that's been going on longer than I thought. I did like there was a montage where he's like, everybody go out and find him. And there's a montage of just, it felt like a promo for the Louisiana swamps. You can ride ATVs. You can get in a helicopter. You can get on a jet ski. You can get on one of those
airboats.
You can get on an airboat. Come on down to Arcane's House of Fun. And
we got mercenaries.
We got mercenaries.
At one point, the head sexy mercenary, I'm so sorry, I don't remember any of their names. They don't have names, it's fine. Was reading some sort of mercenary weekly magazine, which was one of my favorite jokes. Amazing.
I will say that the music did a very odd thing. They had this hero music when he would come on the scene, but it would quickly shift to like a pan flute of to show off his softer side or his mysticalness, I guess. I don't know, but it was very. It would just kind of like drop into this pan flute thing. Very weird. Very fucking weird. I'm sorry if I'm cussing. I'm from New York City. I'm sorry. Not to you, Sarah. I'm not apologizing to you.
I was going to say, what are you apologizing to me for?
There's listeners. I thought it was.
Ed is also from your area, and I don't believe he has the that you have. No, he does. He just doesn't on this show.
Well, I'll just tell you this: when we all first met Ed, we weren't sure he was from around here. Okay, so we were like, "You sure you're from around here? You don't cuss enough. We don't trust you."
Did he have to dirty himself up to like hang with the gang?
We got him as hardcore as we could. He can as hardcore as he could handle. We'll just leave it at that. In my notes, I have a thing here because at one point she's like, "So what are you? Who?" And he's like, "Oh, you want my origin? Let's take a walk." It was it's a very weird kind of deliberate like walk and talk kind of thing. It's like, well, I was a failed experiment, yada yada yada.
Yeah, he just really info dumped that. Well, you see, I was born.
I was once a normal man.
I was not always like this.
One of my favorite things is this pipe organ music starts coming in. This real horror-ish like pipe organ music comes in, and then you see it's Anton. Of course he plays a pipe. Of course.
Just kicking back.
Of course he's playing like the most evil gothic pipe organ music you've ever heard. He looks like a guy who probably wrote that shit. Sadly, he's only wearing a meek sweater vest. He really should have been wearing something kind of more flamboyant, but I'll give him that. Then at one point, the Swamp Thing sneaks into the house via the bathtub.
Yeah, that's what he does.
That's what he does. He oozes out of the drain. It's basically like a bad Palmolive dish soap type thing.
You would for sure call a plumber if you saw that happening.
I mean, all I know is I don't want to clean it.
Or an exorcist.
Right. You have to get a very specific type of plumber. But down there in Louisiana, they probably have those. It's a plumber / mystic house cleaner. But I was not into that, having to worry about who's cleaning up the tub. We mentioned earlier that Dr. Lana has a change of heart at a certain point, and when Abby is escaping the house, she is taking the elevator down, and Dr. Lana is there when the door opens up, and Lana gives her the keys to her car, which was nice.
Sisterhood. It was nice. And how was she rewarded?
Well, what I want to say is she didn't tell her which car it was. This is a thing that happens sometimes in movies and stuff. They're like, here's this thing you need. I won't tell you how to use it because it's going to kind of kill the dramatic tension of the moment in the scene.
We call that Dumbledoring. Here, figure it out.
Figure it out. There's like 12 cars in the lot. Hopefully they don't catch you while you're trying all these keys. And then so Swamp Thing gets a hold of her. They manage to get out. They escape in a Jeep. A very action-packed scene of them.
Excuse me, I believe she loves a man who peels out. Was that the line?
Yeah.
Or is it peels out? I don't know, man. It was uncomfortable.
It was weird. But he leaves behind. I think he takes a shit on the front porch, basically, because they find this clump of Swamp Thing remnants, and I'm like, the dude did everything except put it in a paper bag and light it on fire. Like, he's doing that old gag.
I like that he had time to be that petty. We were in exigent circumstances, my dude.
He's like, well, they cut that scene where he's like, wait a minute. I want to do one more thing, Abby. Just hold on a second.
Belt buckle.
Okay, we can go. She's like, oh my God, you're such a prankster. And just constantly falling deeper in love with him as they go. But the deep question is like, what do you do when you fall in love with a man plant? I mean, it's very strange.
I guess you invest in a good pair of shears, for manscaping.
Yes.
You make sure you've got good UV light.
Right.
So your man gets his chlorophyll.
I do have a note in here that when they were making out in that dream sequence, they don't kiss. It's a lot of neck grazing, which can be hot. Don't get me wrong. Which can be kind of in the moment hot,
especially when the dude's a plant.
Well, he's in human form in this sequence. So
at one point he kisses her chin in a way that I was like, oh no, who taught you?
He's been living
just right on the bottom of her chin. It was very strange.
It's very strange. I mean, there was a lot of nose rubs across necks and jaw bones and stuff like that, which all felt very like, oh, he's not allowed to kiss her on set. That's like in her deal. Like
Heather Locklear said no.
I will kiss him in the Swamp Man makeup, but I am not kissing him out of the Swamp Man makeup. I will have a scene where we maybe do something kinky, but not that.
I'll take that pod, but that's as far as it goes.
One of the best lines I thought was when she's like, oh, it's like you sold your soul to the devil. And he says, well, maybe it's more like a lease with an option to buy. Which I felt like could be just a hint towards in the comics. I think he actually is more arcane in the comics and delves into like black magic and stuff like that. If I remember correctly, like his science stuff is kind of like a hybrid. He's supposed to be a little bit of like an Aleister Crowley-ish type, a little bit more than he is here, where he's just like a scientist who has money. But I thought that was a good line. This note, none of those scars are healing. Okay, right. We covered that. She dies. She dies in the movie. And Swampy, who now has the most important power like ever that you get in movies and fiction, the power to bring back the dead, like after like an hour or more of being dead. By the time he gets her to the tree, he's like, "Oh, I hope this works." I think I wasted some time.
I should have crapped on the porch less. I should have.
That wasn't really necessary. I think I might have. Damn it. But but he brings her back.
And a flower grows out of her foot.
That's my last note. Then, oh my God, a flower grows out of her foot, because now she has been partially inseminated by his pollen sac.
That's my question. Is she pregnant in her foot? Is she becoming Bride of Swamp Thing, Swamp Lady? I mean,
is her swamp baby? Is the swamp baby going to grow where her foot is?
It's open to audience interpretation, which I think is audacious.
It felt very Shrek 2 to me. I think it's Shrek 2, where like everybody's an ogre by the end. Or maybe it's Shrek 1. I don't even know. But it was very like, oh, no. Like the only way this could ever work is if I become a swamp girl.
Everybody's an ogre.
You know what I mean? Like everybody's an ogre by the end, and we're all like, okay, this is how the dynamic works, because we all know it's a little weird for a normal person and a person like that to get down. But yeah, I feel like he's definitely gonna put his pollen in her. I'm trying to remember the parts of a flower.
Stamen.
Stamen.
Stamen. I think stamen is funnier.
Yes. I almost said stem. I knew stem wasn't right.
Hey, for the record, I'm going to trivia you a little bit.
Okay.
Apparently, Heather Locklear was not a fan of the dude they cast as human Holland.
Oh, okay.
She was not a fan of the male model that had a brief scene when she was fantasizing about Swamp Thing in its human form. The model was full of himself and really rubbed Heather the wrong way. As soon as his scene was done, he was asked to leave the set, which may explain why no kissing on the mouth.
Yeah.
Just the chin.
I like that. That feels
good. That kind of, doesn't that feel like accurate to what we witnessed?
Yeah, and I will say that, at the time, Heather Locklear was one of those very talked about kind of like beautiful women who it was like, guys were like, yeah, man, Heather Locklear, right? And I think for some guys, the fact that she hooked up with Tommy Lee then meant that like, oh, I got a chance now too, because he's trash, bro. If she'll fall for that guy, she could fall for me. So I'm sure this clown was probably like, oh, I'll woo her by being a douche. Like maybe he used that maneuver.
Heather Locklear doesn't play that. No.
No. She likes the bad boys, but they can't be bad to her to woo her. That comes later. I will say that I thought it was great that this was a movie where like a guy like Louis Jordan, not Louis. It is Louis. That just sounded too French to me for a split second. I was like, it can't be Louis. But that, he dove back in. He said, you know what, I'll come back for the sequel. I feel like that was a thing that's like, this is a guy who could easily seem like, too good for the room or something like that, But then you look at his IMDb and you're like, oh no, this guy he'll fucking work. He will fucking work. He's got an episode of Scooby and Scrappy Doo on his belt here. Some Columbo, Charlie's Angels, an episode of Vegas, Hotel, if you remember that one. I think that you might. No? Okay.
No.
Fair enough. All right. You don't remember the 1980s? Fair enough. But yeah, a real journeyman type actor. I would have thought he would have been too good for that stuff.
Not when you get a quarter of the film budget or whatever. You're not too good for anything.
No, not when they're paying you enough and you haven't worked in a while. I guess that's true. What else do we have here? What else can we cover real quick? I feel like, Omi and Daryl, have a storyline for no reason. And Ed was right when he mentioned it to me, like, if you cut them out, this movie is much better. And I'm like, but is it? Because I feel like they are like a thing, because I was rewatching it. I was kind of like semi-nostalgic for these two, where I was like, oh, these two. And
those scamps.
These fucking dummies with their porno mags and... which was just really weird. It was just like, oh, porno magazines. Remember those? And having to hide them, like when your parents are coming.
I actually feel like you're addressing the wrong audience member for that conversation.
Well, I know that you know legend of these things. I don't.
I hear tell.
I don't know. Maybe you have a brother or something. I don't know.
I'm a lady.
I'm a lady. We ignore that shit. As you should. As you should. I had 3 older brothers, so that stuff was unavoidable in my house growing up. But that's that. I'm looking over.
Yeah, my notes are out.
Your notes are done. Okay, no, that's fair. My notes are kind of done too. I was wondering if there was anything maybe that we might have kind of missed. I don't know. I'm sure Ed is thinking of a million things right now as he listens to this.
Ed's gonna listen to this and be like, "All right, here's what you didn't do. Here's what you."
Here's what I would have added in, you know. And if he wants to, he can put an addendum to this of his own, you know, a point counterpoint if he wants to. But I know he wasn't, you know, of the greatest on it. So now, do we rate this or anything?
No, we just stop.
You guys don't rate the movies in any way? All right, well, I'm gonna.
I give it 3.5 sex pods out of 5. What?
I was just sitting here thinking, what's the metric? What's the metric?
I think had I come into this not with the DC Universe Swamp Thing in my head,
sure.
I probably would have rolled with it much faster. Mm-hmm. But that was such serious gothic, romantic, dark weirdness that this just really jarring to me.
Sure.
So maybe if I had seen this before that Swamp Thing and then come back and revisited this, it might have been a little less of a bumpy transition into, oh, this is real camp.
Well, I'll say this. If you had watched the Swamp Thing before this, much like I said earlier, if you had watched that one, then you would really appreciate this. It's that whole adage of, you know, if you learn the hard way, you appreciate the easy way kind of a thing. Where, like, if you suffer through that shitty one from Wes Craven, this will seem like high art. And I will give it to the makeup effects. You know, there's a lot of... well, first of all, every creature in it has to be half human, half whatever, and then like the rejects all have it split down the middle on their faces, so it's very like just to let you know he's still a human.
Okay, that's actually fair. That half elephant man was
I thought we were going to get more of those. For some reason, I remembered more chaos at the end, and it's really not.
You were hopeful. You were wishful thinking.
Yes, I was expecting like some kind of bigger, like, you know, climax to it. And it's all very. It's all very by the buttons, by the numbers, a little bit of a way, but I liked it. I think it's one of those movies that, like, it knows what it is. It's having fun with it. If you can let your guard down a little bit, you can have fun with it. And, you know, obviously it's a product of its time, so there's that whole angle to goof on. But yeah.
How many sex pods out of 5?
Oh man, out of 5. What'd you give it?
I went 3.5.
3.5. Well, I only say that because I'm surprised that you went that high. But I'm going to give it the same. I think I'm going to give it the same.
You talked me into it. You talked me around. You I think are the best champion, other than what's his name in the IMDb comments.
Right, rather than the guy who played Daryl, who actually played the loud-voiced, flat-toned kid who either breaks the movie for you or is okay. I'm going to say he might be my MVP of the movie in a way, because there are some line deliveries where I'm like, oh, this kid, like, you know, could have been something. I was trying to picture an adult version of that guy in my head, like still talking like that and being really obnoxiously annoying, but didn't work out. So I guess that's going to wrap up the review.
So typically at this point we do winners of the week. Difficult when we don't have new episodes. You want to pick a winner from the film we've just...
I'm going to say the winner on this one is Dick Durock, who played the Swamp Thing. Even though, here's another factoid I meant to get to. Supposedly in a DVD commentary, they talk about, I think it was a DVD commentary, they talk about how his voice is dubbed in the movie. That's actually not him, which I was kind of surprised because I was like, oh, it feels like it fits and works pretty well. But, you know, he got 2 gigs out of it. So I'm going to say he's my winner of the week. What about you, sir?
I mean, I feel like I made my thoughts known very early on. It is Abby Arcane's can of soup eating roommate who stayed home and avoided this whole mess.
Eunice, I think her name was.
Eunice.
I believe Eunice or something like that.
Winner of the week.
Fine, fair enough. She does give the best eye roll in the film. She's like, oh, you're leaving? Whatever. Like, no lines of dialogue, but it's all body language.
Amazing.
All right, so
that's the DC TV report for this week. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Sara Netzley, SaraNetzley.
You can find me at Wicked Theory. Spell it like you spell stuff. You can also find me and Ed on the Patreon for Wicked Theory. We do Ed Bonds with Bill. It's very much like it sounds, except the bonding part is just us watching James Bond movies. We actually don't bond as people because I'm fighting him every episode about that. Back to you, Sarah.
I was really hoping to get more of your take on Ed Bonds with Bill because we hear the Ed version of Ed Bonds with Bill every week. So
what Ed doesn't explain is how many episodes it goes where I am just struggling to understand his process, and I am really kind of semi-annoyed for a lot of it.
I think Bill is semi-annoyed with Ed is actually a podcast worth exploring.
Well, that's what it is. That's basically what that podcast is for most of it. I am literally about to run out of power, so Sarah, let's wrap this up.
Follow the show on Twitter at DCTV Report. Send along your emails to dctv@wickedtheory.com. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your podcast app of choice and rate and review us. That helps more people find us. Check out our sister show, the Wicked Theory Podcast. This has been a Wicked Theory Studios production. Executive producer and capable guest star Bill.
Woo-hoo! That's me.
Visit us at wickedtheory.com. Shazam, everybody.
Shazam.
That was so weird.
Shazam!